One of the things that intrigues me about this wonderful game of snooker is why top players can do what they can on this green baize, and yet we amateurs can't do what they can do. We've got two arms, two eyes, two legs, just like they are. So why not? Well, to me, that's the real art of coaching. Yes, if I can go by the textbook and say to you, right, this is how I want you to stand, this is how where I want you to hold the cue, this is how I want you to hold the cue, this is how I want you to feather the cue. What about that person that can't do that? And this to me is the real art of coaching. If a person plays this wonderful game very well, he's unlikely to come to me for coaching. It's the man or the person that's got a problem with his game. He's the one that's going to come to me for coaching. Now, as I go around the clubs in the area where I live, I'm often thanked for these videos that we put on YouTube. People say to me how good they are, and they try to copy the mandate that is on the video. But then I'll get a cup of tea and sit down and watch them play. And the truth is they're doing nothing like what I've asked them to do on the video. They may think they are, but in truth they're not. They're just falling back into what they used to do because it is comfortable for them. As I've said on one of my videos, you do what you do because it's comfortable for you. I come along, or some other coach comes along and says, you're right, that is wrong, do this. Straight away it feels strange, feels uncomfortable. And well, I'm missing now a shot, as I know if I use my own method, my old method, I could get. So what you're talking about, it does not work for me. Well, they really don't give it a fair try. That's the truth of that. And they just stagnate at the level they're at. One of the most common faults that I see is people cueing across the ball. And as they cue across the ball, they start to put side on to compensate. It's sort of the chicken and egg situation. Whichever comes first. I'm putting unintentional side on. I don't know I'm putting it on. All I know is that the ball has not gone where I aimed it. So now, instead of knowing that I'm putting side on and cueing that aspect, I start either cueing slightly incorrectly or aiming slightly incorrectly. One floor is now compensating for the other floor. So instead of one floor, we've got two, and sometimes three. Now, generally speaking, there is never one floor, never one. There's always a minimum of two, sometimes even more, obviously. So let's have a look at ways in which we can self-analyze the problem of cueing across the ball, playing with side, etc. Now, I'm aware that, amateurs, generally speaking, some can't afford it, some haven't got access to a coach. So you have to have a look at these sort of things yourself. So the first thing I want to do is just cast your mind back to one of the videos I did on how to ensure that, first of all, you're going to hit that cue ball in the centre. Now, one of the best ways to do that, I believe, and it's not the only way, but one of the best ways is to play with a loop bridge here. Now, we're not going to play a shot with this. We're just going to get down as I'm going to pot a ball, and I'm doing it with a loop bridge. It'll become evident as to why we need that loop bridge in a second. So we're getting down. There's the loop bridge. I place the cue tip to the ball. Right, that's point one. What I think is the centre in my normal aiming position. I let go of this back end and rest the cue on the cushion. Okay, that's point one. Now this is why we need the loop bridge, to keep that cue still. Otherwise it just lift up and fall. Right, so we've got the loop bridge. Now I come up and I look down on this cue ball. Now this is the true picture. We can actually see that we're hitting the ball in the middle, or whether we've got side on, right hand side, left hand side. From there, I am really looking down and I can determine the exact center just by looking down. Now, if I've got a problem, when I put my chin back on the cue, notice I'm not touching the back end again of the cue again, I'm just keeping it still, putting my chin back on the cue. That might now look as if I've got side on the cue ball. All right, but we actually know we haven't because we've looked down on it. When we get our chin back on the cue, the dominant or the preferred eye, as some people call it, takes over, and it can give a false impression of what center looks like. All right. Now, why has that happened? Well, it could be that we're not using the dominant eye correctly. So again, we remember the pencil test on one of the videos. Have a look at that. The sight right technique. You know, that's quite a good way of determining that you're using the dominant eye correctly. Very good way. Many ways to do it. The point I'm making is that the brain, the eyes see what they see, but the brain interprets what it's seeing. And you can alter that interpretation. So from there, don't forget, one of the reasons you cue across the ball is possibly because you're putting side on the cue ball without knowing it. You may put side on the ball also because you are cueing across the ball in the first instance, all right? Or you're aiming slightly wrong. Again, it's a chicken and egg situation. Which came first? Putting the side on and cueing incorrectly to compensate, or cueing incorrectly, so putting the side on to compensate. It doesn't matter which came first. They both need tackling. They both need to be corrected. So that is one method, looking down on the cue ball with a loop bridge. Another method is to put the cue tip down to the bottom of the cue ball and let it sit there with your chin on the cue. And you can see the two arcs at the bottom of the cue ball, and they will be evenly balanced if you're hitting the ball in the middle. Right? If you're cueing to one side, then you will see that one arc is uneven or bigger than the other. So that can easily be rectified. So we've looked at striking the cue ball in the centre as opposed to putting side on. But the other side of the equation is to check that you're cueing straight. And we've got a straight line here, so this baulk line, so let's use it. So here what I'm doing is I'm just cueing along the baulk line, I play an imaginary shot and I check to see if I'm still on the baulk line. All right, I can do that a few times. I've even put 2 blocks of chalk here on one of my other videos to check that I'm aiming with the back end of the cue as well as the front end of the cue. Because the aim starts here, not just with the front end of the cue. So there I'm down, I want to be on that line all the time. There. Now another test to ensure we're hitting the ball in the middle and cueing straight, obviously, is to go over the spots from here and see if we can bring that cue ball back to hit the cue. It's a worthwhile test and one that is commonly practiced. Possibly a better way and slightly more accurate is this one here, where we actually play the cue ball along the baulk line and try to keep it on the baulk line from there. Keeping it on that baulk line. Now we're only really interested in how it leaves that first cushion, Because don't forget, if I've got right-hand side on this cue ball, from there, and it comes across and strikes this cushion, that right-hand side will now become left-hand side and check it back onto the baulk line. So I'm only really interested in how it leaves that first cushion, and it tells you an awful lot. And I'd be quite happy with that. What I will say is that I'm well aware that a lot of us cannot afford a coach. Even if we could, a lot of us don't have access to a coach. But one thing, generally speaking, now throughout the world, is most of us have mobile phone, or at least access to one. And on a modern day phone, right, we all have these video facilities. It's a wonderful facility, not only for me as coaching, but also for you when you use it for self-analysis, all right? Get a friend to video how you're standing, where you're holding the cue, how you're holding the cue. Record you from all sorts of different angles, looking down on the cue ball to determine you're hitting it in the middle, looking along the cue as you play a shot, from the side, is my head moving? Wonderful facility. Please, please take advantage of it. Right? Get yourself on video, analyze what you're doing if you've got a problem, and then hopefully you can sort it out. Sometimes you need a little bit of help, but generally speaking, that will tell you know what a good player looks like. You know what he's got to do. Yeah? Try and copy it to some degree. Yes, you've got your own little individual things, shall we say. I mean, nobody does it like Ronnie or Judd Trump or Mark Selby. They all do the same thing slightly differently. And we shouldn't become robots, yeah, where we all do the same thing all the time. No, but put yourself on that video and I guarantee it will pay dividends. Good luck with that practice.